On Tech News Today, Twitter rocks their earnings report, but will they meet expectations in the future? Plus, Google's got Amazon envy, Virgin Mobile's got Burger King envy, they're going to let you have it your way, and Instagram's got Tap Talk envy. All that and more coming up right now.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, July 30th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you'll finally have all your financial life in one place and get a clear view of everything you own. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan. With me is the destroyer of smartwatch charging bricks, Jason Howell.
Yeah, it happened.
What are you doing? How are you able to charge
I'm
your
taking
watch?
it off the charger, and then it decides to break.
See,
Gear Live, Samsung Gear Live, design it better.
This is why we can't have nice things.
It's true.
Now, we did a review together, like you did the Samsung, I did the LG.
Yeah.
And we talked about the charger. That's one advantage of the LG. It's a nice
huge
magnetic
advantage.
It has a sticker on the bottom, so you basically glue it to the top of your thing, and the watch goes in and out very easily. So 1 point for the LG G Watch, although Samsung does have advantages.
Sure.
And we also have today Christina Warren, Senior Tech Editor and Analyst for Mashable. Welcome, Christina.
Hello, hello.
So glad you're here. You are our guest co-anchor today, and we have lots and lots of stories and lots of interview guests to grill with our questions. So why don't we jump right into it? Twitter shares rose 35% yesterday after the company's earnings report. They said monthly active users were surprisingly good, up 24% for a total of 271 million people. Katie Benner is a reporter for The Information, and Miriam Gottfried is a reporter for The Wall Street Journal. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Now, Miriam, we'll start with you because you're on the screen. Twitter had a pretty good quarter. Can you give us an overview of Twitter's financial performance for the quarter, and also give us a sense of their user numbers?
Yes, so they beat expectations on both earnings and revenue. They still lost money on a GAAP basis, but they beat what everyone had been expecting. And more importantly, because we know everybody's focused on user numbers, they added more users than people had been expecting, than analysts had been expecting. And they added 16 million users, and the stock flew after hours. And it's flying today.
Now, Katie, you raised the question in your article of exactly how Twitter will be able to meet the expectations it raised. It did raise expectations and implied that, they want to be the biggest social network in the world, and they implied that they have lots and lots of ways to make money. You raised a few doubts. Do you think this will be a challenge for them?
Well, I think that, true, they raised the bar. They gave really no roadmap in terms of how they're going to continue to meet this higher expectation going forward. There were clues that are sprinkled throughout, and I think that one of them is the engagement versus just sheer number of users question. We're getting a lot of talk about how they're going to deepen engagement, and you're seeing that in the numbers in terms of average revenue per user. So I think that until they can become the most widely used social network, or however they were phrasing it on the call yesterday, they're really going to have to continue to please Wall Street by deepening engagement and making the experience better for advertisers and making each user more valuable.
Now, let me throw this to you, Miriam. As you said, they beat expectations, but those expectations were a little bit tempered because of the past two earning flubs. Do you think that now that they've managed to show that, yeah, they can beat expectations once people have an idea of what, they can actually do in a quarter in terms of raising user numbers, that they will be able to continue to beat or even meet Wall Street and their own figures going forward?
I think the key is really being able to set reasonable expectations for this company. And, it is notable because the user growth that they posted was actually about the same as they posted last quarter. I think it was just a matter of people having lower expectations for their user growth. But they did grow earnings by a huge percentage. And I think, one of the highest percentages they've posted ever. And I think that the challenge will be, as Katie said, I completely agree, to raise average revenue per user, make their users more valuable and close the gap with a social network like Facebook, which is making more revenue per user at this point.
Now, Katie, Twitter seems to have kind of an opposite problem as Facebook. I mean, Facebook has more users than anyone. They're growing, they're profitable, and they have lots and lots of opportunities for advertising. Twitter, on the other hand, is kind of pretty much stable in terms of user growth. They are not profitable, and they've got to turn both of those things around. Is there something about Twitter, for example, its minimalist sort of history, that prevents them from being able to scatter advertising and video and doing all the things that Facebook has done in order to monetize the site? Do they have built-in limitations?
Well, I think that the analysts were all alluding to that on the call when they were asking the very sort of loaded questions around what are you going to do about the experience? Are you going to make Twitter look different? Are you going to make Twitter look essentially more like Facebook? And they said, no, it is what it is. We're going to go with what we've got. We're just going to try to find a way for when people join for them to immediately get value, meaning they have an active, interesting feed of people to follow. And so Twitter has said, we're going to basically not even address that as an issue. We think what we have really works, and it's the deepening engagement. It's the creating these real-time moments where people are forced onto Twitter because they're watching the Oscars or they're watching the World Cup that provide these really rich moments for advertisers that actually feels probably much more like live TV in terms of what an advertiser would get from that experience than what you have from Facebook or Instagram. So, I mean, Twitter is standing its ground on that point and saying we don't actually have to change the service, and that these sorts of concerns are things that we understand and will address, but that we're not going to essentially change in order to make people feel better.
Miriam, Gottfried, Katie mentioned the World Cup. Now, that was a big issue, I think, in the call, a kind of an elephant in the living room. They talked about huge engagement because of the many things, the innovative things they did around the World Cup soccer tournament. They did get enormous engagement. They had all kinds of unexpected features and benefits for fans of the World Cup, but they didn't grow users. And they seem to be a little defensive of that in subsequent post-call interviews. But, if that sort of big investment and big effort like that doesn't grow users, what will? And why should they do those things just to increase engagement? I mean, you have this big, splashy event that really didn't bring them what they need the most, which is more users.
Well, I think it's interesting that you phrase it that way, because I think the reason that they highlighted that this didn't grow them users was they wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this user growth that we saw in the quarter wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't something that just came because of the World Cup. But that said, your point is still correct. You would think that an event like the World Cup, where a huge push is being made on Twitter, would aid in user growth. It's really no surprise that it aids in user engagement because there are so many games going on, and I even felt myself tweeting about the World Cup. But I think Twitter was trying to really highlight to analysts that don't think that our user growth that beat expectations this quarter was just because of the World Cup.
Well, in related news, Twitter has acquired Madbits, which is a deep learning computer vision startup. Katie, what does the Madbits acquisition say about the future of Twitter to you?
I mean, the first thing I thought was uses around e-commerce, uses around engagement, and uses around data collection, because these are all things, again, Twitter has extraordinary data, and there are several companies that are built to do nothing but monetize Twitter's data stream. Twitter has said, this is not where we want to go. We're going to cede that ground. But this is still very valuable information that if they can provide it either to a reseller, including the one that they themselves own, GNIP, it will enhance the experience for advertisers, or they're doing experimental things around e-commerce with CardSpring, and then also just data. I think it's a Data Miner is a company that does predictive analytics using Twitter data that they're selling to financial firms and hoping to sell to insurance companies someday. So anything they can do to enrich the data stream is probably going to be good for Twitter in terms of engagement and, again, how they can cater to advertisers.
Now, Miriam, Twitter acquired Madbits, and obviously they have, they're just doing, to Katie's point, they're doing a ton of stuff with data, and Twitter's made a lot of these sorts of acquisitions in the past. But what they've had a more difficult time doing, at least from my perspective, some of the acquisitions like GNIP notwithstanding, is actually integrating those employees and I guess those patents or any of those services into their core products. They bought Bluefin Labs, which I believe is still their biggest acquisition to date, and basically didn't take any of the product because they had an existing relationship with Nielsen. But took some of the talent and I guess took some of the IP. Do you see any challenges or do you have any expectations for how they might be using some of this Madbits data or product with their core experience or even some of their advertising tools moving forward?
It's really hard to say. As you say, they really haven't, demonstrated major integration of their previous acquisitions into their core product. And so, I don't, it's really hard to speak to the challenges of doing that in this case, because, as Katie said, they're not going to change their core product. So, it is a little bit unclear about, how these acquisitions fit into the bigger picture and the overall target of growing the user base.
Well, Katie Benner is at theinformation.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at KT Benner. Those the letter K, letter T, and BENNER. Thank you so much for joining us, Katie Benner.
Hey, thank you.
All right, and Miriam Gottfried writes at the WSJ.com. That's the Wall Street Journal's website, of course. And you can find her on Twitter at Miriam Gottfried. Thank you, Miriam.
My pleasure.
All right, in just a sec, we're going to talk about something Google's trying to be a little bit more Amazon-like. But first, I want to tell you about personal capital. Personal capital is the way to grow your wealth. There are two barriers to growing your wealth, and personal capital helps you with both of them. The first is that it's hard to keep track of all your financial information, which inevitably is going to be scattered all over the internet in different accounts, bank accounts, 401ks, you name it, your stocks, everything. It's all over the place. How do you really get a sense of what's going on with your own money? Personal capital will give you that sense by bringing together all your accounts and all your assets to one single screen on your computer, phone, or tablet, and it'll show you real-time intuitive graphs so you can really get a sense of what's going on. The second barrier to growing your money is that you're probably paying somebody too much money to help you manage your money, and Personal Capital will show you how much you're paying, how much too much you're paying, and how to reduce those fees. You'll get tailored advice on optimizing your investment. Now, Jason and I always talk about our Android Wear watches. Personal Capital is one of the first to embrace Android Wear, and they have an award-winning Android app that now supports Android Wear. You can download it right now in Google Play. The watch app seamlessly integrates with Personal Capital on other Android devices, so any Android device that supports their app will support Android Wear, and it gives you relevant and timely updates on your finances right from your wristwatch. So money is important, and you want that information alerting you on your wrist when important things happen to your money. So there's no need to wait. Signing up takes just a minute. It pays big dividends, and you can start getting total clarity and transparency on your investments and your money right away. To set up a free account, go to personalcapital.com/TNT. And remember that Personal Capital is free, and it's the smart way to grow your money. And we thank Personal Capital for their support of Tech News Today. Google wants search results to be more intuitive and actionable. The company's adding a 5-star rating system to some ads that appear along with Google search results, and they seem to have some kind of Amazon envy where they want these little ads to appear along with 5-star ratings. This is kind of an odd thing because it's a little bit opaque. I mean, you look at it as a regular customer and you think, well, where are these ratings coming from? Who is rating these products? And of course, if you drill down into it, you'll get recommendations and reviews and that sort of thing. But these are coming from all kinds of different disparate sites, and so there's going to be a lot of unevenness. How do you feel about this from a search engine sort of clarity point of view and sort of, I guess, there's been a lot of controversy around Google and their search results, and are these, are they being fair to their competitors and so on? How do you feel about this whole initiative?
Yeah, I'm really mixed about it, because on the one hand, when I search for something, I do really enjoy seeing if there's some sort of rating, whether it's from the, the schema.org stuff that comes up with reviews where you can see what the reviewer said, or if you can get something from Amazon and if it has some sort of rating attached to it, like that makes you feel better about what you might be searching for. But without knowing where this stuff is coming from and without knowing how that data is being determined, I don't really know if it helps or hurts. And then I've got to be honest, when I see anything that's promoted as a search result or a search ad, I tend to discount it because most of the time I feel like, okay, whoever's placing the ad is going to tell me anything they can just to get me to click through and buy the product. So I kind of don't know. Now, do you know, is this pulling stuff in from, like, the Google Plus recommendation stuff that we all got upset about, or I got upset about anyway? You might have been fine with it. About any time I've plussed on an item, it'll show my name, in the results showing, hey, Christina liked this and endorses it. Do you know if that data is coming into play here?
It seems to be coming from wherever they can. I don't believe these reviews for non-restaurants and so on are coming from Google+. They appear to be coming primarily provided by merchants, which is another part of the controversy of this, which is, will merchants go along with this? I mean, they're kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of situation where if they cooperate with Google, then Google gains a lot more power in the world of online commerce. And if they don't cooperate, they kind of sort of sink to the bottom in search results. So it's kind of a problem for them in terms of cooperating. But this is really coming, they're kind of scraping these things together from wherever they can get them, as far as I can tell. So that's one of the controversial things. And, this whole thing about bringing, essentially using social media users as endorsers of products without their knowledge is an objectionable thing, in my opinion. It was objectionable when Google Plus did it. It was objectionable when Facebook did it. I'll never forget when Facebook told me that my niece, who's a minor and who hasn't lived in the United States in many, many years, is living in Africa, was endorsing AT&T. And I thought, well, first of all, anybody who's ever used AT&T is not likely to say, wow, I'm a huge AT&T fanboy. And second of all, she's a minor, which is illegal, I think, for Facebook to use her as a recommendation. And thirdly, she's not familiar with the product or the service. So
yeah, no, and there's the question: are they trying to be more like Amazon? I guess my question is: are they really trying to be more like Bing? Because isn't this what Bing was really trying to do with its shopping portal that it eventually scrapped?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And the appearance of it looks a lot like sort of Amazon type of recommendations, and the whole 5-star thing is a very Amazonian thing. I really think that Amazon is the target in terms of taking away e-commerce business, though, for Google, and of course Amazon gets so much of it online, and the rating system is a big part of it. But when you go to Amazon and you see ratings, you see the stars, you see the reviews, it's kind of, you understand where it comes from and who's doing it, and you understand the pitfalls and the benefits of that.
Right. And you know if somebody actually bought it or not. You know if whoever rated it actually bought it. It can say verified purchase. If I just see like no-name merchant, that rating information is feeding into this. I mean, for all I know, it could be the owner of of the store who's rating products a certain way so he can hope to sell them because he bought too many, he bought too many what was a huge profitable product. He got too many Facebook phones, right? He got too many of those, and he's trying to push them. So he's buying ads with 5-star ratings, to put on Google results. I mean, that could be part of this. I don't really trust this, I guess, is where I come from. But
I don't either. And astroturfing is a big problem in this area, as you said, especially in the hospitality type of ratings, hotels and so on. People go in and they have if a small restaurant, for example, can get all the friends and family to go in there and put positive reviews. Doesn't mean it's a good restaurant if, people are doing it to help their friend or their family member. And then this shows up in a search result and you can't really tell where it's coming from. I see a lot of problems with this potentially. Maybe they'll figure out a way to get rid of that kind of gaming. But so far, this looks like potentially full of problems. Well, Virgin Mobile USA launched today a new customizable wireless plan. It's called Virgin Mobile Custom. The plan lets customers control the details of their plan, how much data, how many minutes, and so on. And all this can be changed at any time on the fly through a special app. Pretty interesting story. And Pete Pachal wrote a story on it for Virgin Mobile Custom on Mashable. Welcome, Pete.
Hello. May I say, Christina, get back to work.
All these Mashable people. I'm surrounded. So Pete, can you tell us more about this basic offering? What is it that they're offering here exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's an exclusive through Walmart. So you got to go to Walmart to get this plan. But essentially, it's a smartphone plan paired with a few mid-range smartphones that is aimed very much at families and parents especially. So The thing about custom is, it's exactly what it says on the tin. You can select from various a la carte menus exactly how many minutes you want, exactly how much data you want, exactly how many texts you want, which will all go into a pool of up to 5 phones to share. And if you want unlimited, you're going to have to restrict that to a single phone, but those options are available too, except for data, of course, because you can never really get true unlimited data on mobile. Now, one of the big special features of custom is the parental controls, and they're really, honestly, the most granular controls I've seen in the smartphone space, at least offered by a carrier. There's probably third-party apps that have done this level, but from a carrier standpoint, I've never seen anything quite like it. You can authorize from a master device, whether that's something on the custom plan or you've actually a separate device. You can authorize specific apps and also specifically when those apps can be run on the other phones. So I'll use, obviously, the advantages of this for parents are huge. If you want your kids to be on Facebook and maybe not Snapchat, you can do that. Or if maybe you don't want them doing Facebook during school hours or during family time, you can do that. And you can do a free-for-all too. So it's a very much, tailor this to your needs and your family, and they're basically giving you the tools to do that.
So, all right, I know that you said it's going to be working on a number of mid-range phones. Is this only going to work on Android, the app and the restrictions, or can you use this with an iPhone as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's 3 phones. There's 2 from LG. There's 1 from ZTE. And they're all fairly mid-range phones, low to mid-range. 2 of them are 3G and one is 4G LTE, and they're all Android. The thing is, though, they do have controls on the web and an app to come soon, that's actually coming September 1st, that you can control those phones from another phone or from the web. And so you don't have to be on the plan and have one of these phones to give them to your kids. You can just basically be on your own plan, and you can do it remotely.
Cool. So, but if I'm a kid and I root my Android phone, I can probably remove mom or dad from controlling this.
Well, honestly, you don't even
do we know
have to
anything
do
about
that.
security?
You don't even really have to do that. You can just switch to airplane mode because if you're authorized in a certain time, the thing is, the airplane mode will only prevent an update. So if your parent has updated, say this is going to shut down at 9, going into airplane mode. If that update has already pushed to your phone, it already knows that time to turn off. It's not going to do anything. But going into airplane mode will prevent the parent from changing anything. So basically, your phone will be however they left it when you went into airplane mode. So if they say, well, I'm going to restrict, I'm turning off Snapchat now, run to your phone, turn on airplane mode, and then you'll be able to do that. But I mean, obviously, if you're in airplane mode, you won't be Snapchatting. So that would probably only apply to games and that kind of thing. But that's sort of the poor man's workaround. But yes, if you're a kid, otherwise rooting your phone, obviously that anything's in play if that happens. But I mean, as far as the kids these days, I don't know how many kids are really going to do that.
Now, Virgin Mobile USA, of course, is a prepaid mobile service that is a wholly owned subsidiary of Sprint. And the technology that enables this sort of real-time tweaking of the plan is from a company called It's On, or a product called It's On. This is a startup that Sprint actually shuttered earlier this month. And it's an interesting and kind of rare utilization of a resource that an acquiring company has. Can you tell us a little bit more about It's On and how this works?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know a whole hell of a lot about It's On, but how it works is it's essentially a web portal and an app that I wish I had one of the phones here to show you, but you kind of just slide on these visual menus, and you can at the moment you sort of pick a new amount. It'll recalculate everything for you. So you can actually redo this completely on the fly as often as you want. They were saying you could do it every hour, or, however often you want. It'll automatically calculate what your credit will be if you reduce, say, the number of minutes and how much you'll have to pay extra if you increase it. And that said, you can do a custom plan and not even use the parental controls. So, if you just like the idea of customizing what you're doing and among your family in terms of the amount of data you're consuming, the amount of text, the amount of voice minutes, and changing that to meet your needs on any given month, you can do that too.
Really interesting. Well, the last time we saw you, Pete, you were wearing Google Glass and you had a smartwear watch on each wrist, and it's nice to see that you've recovered from Google I/O.
I don't have my jawbone anymore.
Wow, incredible.
It's irritating my skin. I think it's, I'm going to see what I can do in terms of what I can with sensors around, which seems to be the new thing. There's I don't know if you saw the Kickstarter of the sleep gadget that tells you how well you slept without even you having to wear anything.
That's
so
the orb thing?
Yeah, the orb thing called the Sense. So, that's the kind of thing I'd like to see more of. Wearables, I still like wearables. I still like the technology of Google Glass. But yeah, there's some issues there.
Well, it's nice of you to join us. Of course, Pete Pachal is at Mashable.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Pete Pachal. Thank you so much for joining us on Tech News Today.
Sure thing.
All right. Well, Instagram has quietly unveiled a new messaging app called Bolt. Here to tell us all about it is The Verge's Ellis Hamburger. Welcome, Ellis.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you wrote that Bolt is a copy of the messaging app TapTalk, but prettier. What is the purpose of this app? I mean, why does it exist?
So you might have thought that you couldn't really break down sending a picture to be any faster than, let's say, an iMessage or WhatsApp or whatever. And those kinds of apps, you have to go into a conversation, hit the photo button to choose a photo, go to your library, pick the photo, hit send, and then you're done. And it doesn't seem like that's too big of a barrier to sending photos to friends. But once you try an app like TapTalk or like Bolt, you realize that it is. And with these two apps, you can hold up your phone, which is essentially a camera viewfinder. And at the bottom of the viewfinder are the faces of some of your friends. And if you tap on one, it'll immediately send whatever's on your screen to that person. If you hold on their face, which is a little awkward to say, it'll send them a video. So it's pretty cool because, I mean, I haven't had the chance to try Bolt yet because it's only available in a few countries, but it's pretty obvious how it's going to work and how it's going to feel because Facebook's mobile apps these days are generally pretty polished. So what you can say is that it's probably going to be super fast way to send a photo or video to a friend.
All right, so break this down with me right now, Ellis. So Facebook has Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram, which has Instagram messages, and now it has Bolt. So, and Slingshot. So that these are 5 different ways that you can send photos or quick little messages to your friends. Is this too many for one company? Like, are they kind of like losing track of the game right now by trying to copy Snapchat, now trying to copy TapTalk? What's going on?
I think some people could call it the spaghetti against the wall strategy, which could be true. But I mean, Facebook is increasingly looking more and more like a conglomerate, which is just the sum of all its parts. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and somebody was saying that some of their friends who were younger weren't even aware that Instagram was owned by Facebook. And to be honest, I don't blame them. I mean, there's not even a login with Facebook button in Instagram. You can sign up with Facebook, but it's really not emphasized. And if you click the 3 dots on an Instagram photo, you can tweet it, but you can't share it on Facebook. I mean, they're still very much an independent company, and I think that these other projects that Facebook's trying for messaging, even if they're all attacking a similar problem, they're all feeling very independent, and it seems like the people who worked on them had free reign to do what they wanted. And I think Facebook's just hoping that one of them works. None of their standalone apps, besides Messenger, which is really a different category, have really caught on. And I think they're just trying to say, hey, if you're within Facebook and you have a great idea, even though a lot of these are kind of copycats, I think they're saying if you think you can really make something work, go for it. The funny thing, though, is that when Facebook made an app like Poke, everybody already knew about Snapchat, and they didn't have very much goodwill from people trying out Poke, saying, oh, this is just like Snapchat, but Facebook made it. There wasn't any reason to switch. But in TapTalk's case, I use the app a lot, but it hasn't caught on almost anywhere. I doubt they have more than a few million active users, if that, as highly engaged as those users may be. So the interesting thing about Bolt is that they're going to be promoting it inside of the Instagram feed directly when it does roll out globally. And I think it really does have a solid chance to succeed for that reason. Imagine if you get some celebrities that start promoting this on their feeds. They say, oh, I just saw this little banner for Bolt, and now I'm trying it. And before you know it, millions of people are using it who've never even heard of TapTalk, or Mirage for that matter, the app made by the creators of Yo that Bolt also looks a lot like.
And of course, Facebook, back to their multi-app strategy, they can put ads on all these different platforms. Theoretically, they can harvest personal data from all these different platforms. So they don't really, I don't think they really care how many apps they have. They could do this with 100 apps, and they'd still be able to pursue their business model and probably be very successful with it. Now, you mentioned that you alluded to a global rollout. Currently, they're available in New Zealand, Singapore, and South Africa only. So don't go looking for this unless you're in those countries. And we don't know when they're going to roll out globally. Now, one of the weird things about this app, there's many weird things, but one of the weird things is that you can send to one person at a time.
Right.
Is this a fatal flaw? I mean, sometimes you want to send a message to 2 people or 5 people.
I think it's a great idea, actually. I mean, I've been using Tap Talk for a couple months, and it's really changed the way that I talk to a few of my friends. And that's what it's designed to do, is to make sending a quick photo or a video of whatever you're doing to your spouse or a few of your best friends. If you look at the Bolt design, there are only 4 friends you can have at the bottom of your screen. You could swipe to add more to your favorites list, but for all intents and purposes, it's easiest to send a Bolt to just 1 person, 2 people, 3 people. And that's what it's designed to do. And and I still use Snapchat a ton. I think there is an emergent category for these one-tap photo messaging apps, as they're being called. And that's a very separate category from, let's say, group messaging, where everybody can see the chat history, everybody can see what's going on, and from something like Snapchat or even Slingshot or Instagram Direct, where it's one-to-many. I think that it's really crazy to see that there is an emergent category here. I didn't think there would be one. I guess that's why these people are making new products and not me. But I think it's definitely something that we're all going to be using. I mean, you have something you want to show somebody. How can you show it to them as fast as possible? And I think that there are going to be tools to emerge to let people do that.
The next step, obviously, is telepathic, where you just think about sending somebody something. Your Google contact lens will take a picture, send it off, and it's coming next. I can't think of anything that's faster than this. Well, Ellis Hamburger writes at TheVerge.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Hamburger. Thank you so much, Ellis Hamburger, for joining us on Tech News today. All right. Well, a new software platform for the hotel industry launched today. It's called Voyat, and it exists in part to harvest information about hotel guests from social media sites in order to customize their hotel experience. Voyat came out of beta today and also out of stealth mode. Ben Fischer is a reporter for New York Business Journal and joins us now. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, do hotels want this kind of customer relationship management? Is this something they're clamoring for?
Well, I guess I couldn't speak for the entire industry, but it makes a certain amount of sense. And Voyat says that they've gotten quite a bit of positive feedback in their beta. Generally, they feel like their customer relationship management is way behind the curve, considering how important loyalty and keeping an eye on possible future relationships is for them.
So here's my question. Do customers, do people who stay in hotels, are they going to be okay with this? And are they going to be okay with, being tracked potentially and directly marketed to, or having things set up specifically for them? Do you think that that's something that people who are, travelers are going to want from their hotel of choice?
Well, I guess that's a fair question. Voyat says that in beta there was, pretty high level of opting in, that 95% of all users did use the Wi-Fi login, and somewhere between 50 and 80% went through a social channel to do that, which connected in their Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter accounts into the CRM database they're building. So I guess it depends on the type of person who's in this hotel room, but at least so far there seems to be a willingness to go along, at least so far.
Here's a follow-up question on that. Do you think that there's going to be the potential for there to be almost 2 classes of customers? Those customers who, if they connect and they are high profile on a social network, or have a lot of LinkedIn subscribers, or are really big on Facebook, that they might get special or preferential treatment versus the average person who might just use social media like a normal person and not have any sort of clout, to use a bad turn of phrase. Within the industry. Do you think that there's the potential for for this sort of thing to almost create 2 classes of customer service?
Well, I think there is within the category of people who are already frequent hotel users, but I think that's where there already are 2 classes of hotel guests, in that the transactional data that would also be fed into this CRM database will tell the hotel management and with something they already know. Who are the people who are using their services, on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis, the business travelers. So I think the real two worlds of the travelers will be the people who are already frequent guests and then the people who aren't. And I think that Voyat thinks this is a way for the hotels to connect to the frequent guests, the infrequent guests, in the same way they connect with the frequent guests.
Now, of course, this all sounds kind of Google-ish, all this sort of, mining of social data to provide a more personalized experience. And of course, one of Voyat's co-founders is Benjamin Habel, who worked for Google for about 2 years. And in fact, he was Marissa Mayer's chief of staff at Google when she was at Google.
That's right.
She's now at Yahoo. Does his experience working for Google, do you think, suggest a future acquisition by Google or some other company like Yahoo or whatever? Or do you think that something like this would be better as an independent service or product?
Well, and so early on, it's hard to say. To me, the more likely acquirer of this might be a company that's intrinsically in travel. I don't know if it's a Google or a Yahoo buy necessarily. I know those Google connections obviously are already a huge part of this startup story. Most of his investors have one connection or another to Google, or a very direct connection in the case of David Hirsch and Metamorphic. And this is obviously, as you said, a Google-ish idea. Whether, I guess it's purely speculative at this point, who might eventually buy them, but there are, the Airbnb, Uber, Concur deal that's come together this week has made me think that Voyat could ultimately become part of something that's a little bit more core to that industry.
Ben Fischer writes at upstart.bizjournals.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at nybizfisher. Thank you so much for joining us, Ben Fischer.
Thank you.
Well, Christina, that is the tech news today. You did a great job on Twit Sunday. That was an awesome show, and you were great on that show.
Thank you so much.
And so everybody who's watching this show, you need to, if you don't already subscribe to Twit, you need to go subscribe, and you need to listen to that episode. It was really a really great episode. Lots of interesting stuff on that show. So what else are you working on these days, Christina?
Well, I would do, Mashable, writing stories and doing reviews every day. I'm actually trying to kind of figure out and really get a full understanding of what's happening with the whole Tor story, which you guys might talk about tonight or tomorrow morning with what looks like there was a breach there. And so you can find me at Mashable and on Twitter, of course.
Well, good luck with that Tor story. I started grappling with it this morning. It is complicated.
It is. My mind's like, I don't even know where to start. So I'm like, all right, I've got to... it's a tough one.
It's a gnarly story, and I love those kinds of stories. You can follow Christina Warren at film_girl on Twitter. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. And speaking of subscribing to Twitch shows, you can subscribe to this show, Tech News Today, on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, RSS. So many ways to subscribe, and you can choose your favorite at twit.tv/TNT. And please follow us on Twitter as well, Tech News Today TV. Send us your thoughts and opinions. We want to hear from you. Comment on Twitter or Google Plus using the hashtag TechNewsToday, and we will find it. You can also send email to tnt@twit.tv. Don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.